Welcome back. This is Sharon Vornholt, and I'm excited to have my guest on today. This particular guest, Stevie Bear, is from Austin, Texas, and we're going to talk about container homes. Now, this is a really hot product right now, particularly in certain areas around the country. Stevie comes from a real estate company that goes back 3 generations, and she has 5 businesses. She's a licensed broker in Texas. She's a real estate investor, a builder. She is a partner in a funding company. And most recently, she's the managing partner of a company called Make It Modular. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Make It Modular is a new business for Stevie that has really taken off. And just for fun, she has yet another business called the Bear's Lair, which we're going to ask her about, which is a creative space for artists and musicians that is free. So welcome to the show, Stevie.
Thank you, Sharon. Happy to be here.
I'm going to have you start out by telling everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, you hit it pretty well in your introduction. Thanks. Third generation involved in, real estate, building, construction, that kind of thing. It goes back to my great-grandfather. Came over on a boat from Norway, and farming and construction were things that the Norwegians do really well. And I brought that with him. And my father is still rehabbing and flipping in his early 70s. And I got into real estate kind of through the back door. I bought a house, and 6 months later, I came home during a rainstorm, and part of it had fallen off. And it was a crazy story, but it got me into real estate. And 20 years later, I'm still here, and there has been a progression from just being a realtor to a broker to flipping to building a building company, and it's been quite a fun ride.
So you came from a real estate background. So your dad was an agent then?
No, not so much an agent. He just he had had a lot of construction and hands-on carpentry and plumbing, electrical stuff, and so he had learned that, and I didn't actually know my dad until my late 20s. And by the time we met, I was already involved in real estate. So it's kind of that apple doesn't fall far from the tree, even if you didn't know what tree you came from, But I had known my great granddad and my granddad, and so it was an interesting process to be part of and to see that even if you didn't particularly know that person, you had a lot in common with them.
Isn't that the oddest thing?
Yeah.
So you started out first, aside from the first house you bought, which was really quite an interesting story, kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
So that was your first real estate purchase?
That was my first real estate purchase as an adult. In my very young years, I was involved with a partner who had been a realtor, and that was right after I was out of high school, and had been a realtor and had a home. And I kind of actually first became interested in real estate at that point, but it took me 10 more years before I actually took the leap and became a realtor myself.
Yeah. Don't we all have that story? Well, I got it in here, but it took me like this long to do my deal or really get started. We all have that learning period, it seems like. And I think we all wish we'd started just a little bit sooner.
That's what I tell people. Start as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got your license, and then when did you figure out that investing was more for you?
Oh, it was pretty early on. I mean, I was fortunate enough to, at the time I got my license back in the late 90s, I guess, the broker that was running that company, part of the teaching was, if you're in real estate, you should be in real estate. So, of course, I took that pretty seriously. So within a couple of years of having my license, I was, flipping. I was taking the experience I learned from my grandfather and my great grandfather, and putting those skills to use, doing some rehabbing and flipping on my own, and I kind of gained a reputation for doing that. People came to see me. I taught other people how to do it. Sort of did some mentoring along the way, and some of my projects started to go beyond the traditional rehabbing, where we were pretty much going down to the studs and the foundation and even doing foundation work. And it became more of a building project. I was putting additions on to projects, and that led me to a historical development down in San Antonio, a historical home. And I did that one and said, hey, that's it. I'm done flipping for now. I'm gonna build my modular homes. I'm gonna build my container houses, and that's
Wow.
the process.
Wow. So you really have done it all. So the question I always keep coming back to is, how the heck do you manage 5 businesses? I have trouble wrapping my brain around that one.
Yeah, my wife does too. I don't sleep much. I don't sleep a lot, and but organization and systems are huge. I'm kind of OCD about just being organized. I work 16-hour days. It's not uncommon. I put everything, I keep lists. I put everything, what are the top 5 things I need to do for each of these departments, each of these companies today, and I try to knock those out. Mm-hmm. And I stay pretty organized. I have my little bag. I set it up at night. This is what I've got that I need tomorrow. This is my list for tomorrow. Everything's ready to go. I pop up. I get a workout in. Get some protein in. I get my drinks. I hit the door, and I go take care of what I have to take care of. When I come home, there's another, the reverse routine. Unpack it all, figure out what I need for the next day, put it all back in place, and be ready to go again. So just systems and teaching the people that I work with how to be as efficient and effective as they can be using those same kind of systems and organizational skills. And we can kind of stay on the same pages.
I think that is key. And I think, I know I like to sit down the night before and plan out what I'm going to do. And I'm always working on being more organized. I don't think you ever feel like you're as organized for me as what I could be. There's always, I feel like a gap somewhere. Yeah. And so I've got a particular journal that I work in now that I'm trying out. It's called a push journal, and it's like it's just a more formal thing than having 59 lists, which I'm really bad about. I like lists, but you can get so listed out that you've got too much stuff on your list. Like you said, you pick your top things. So that's what I'm doing, because you can't do everything, and you sure as heck can't do everything well if you're overwhelmed like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been transitioning to trying to do some of it electronically, have my electronic memo list, and it sets, I'm able to set, like little timers or reminders of, this is the time that I'm supposed to be working on this project. Okay, I need to go ahead and push to that project at this point. And it helps to kind of keep me on schedule. There's always times when things come up that you have to push things to a later date or to the next day or something, but I try to schedule it out so that I'm able to accomplish those things and still make room for the other minutia of the day, if you will. But having some kind of schedule that you can work with, and some way that works for you. People ask me a lot of times, what is the best tool for this, and what is the tool used? And I said, well, the tool I use doesn't matter. The best tool for you to use is the one that you'll use. So often we, get bombarded with all kinds of tools, especially these days. There's so many things. There's so many things at our disposal. And it's great to know what people that are doing similar work that we're doing, what they use. But, the best tool is the one that you'll use. The
one that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of my hero with 5 businesses. So I'm kind of like going, okay.
I don't recommend it.
I feel like I'm dropping the ball here.
No, no. It was, I kind of stumbled into it. It was an accidental thing. And some of them are set up intentionally for, like the real estate company. It's set up intentionally for, at some point, for me to step back and just be a broker manager, and for the agents to actually take the company over. I'm really big on your key people, your core people, taking ownership in the company. I believe that they take ownership. They tend to do more. They tend to get more involved. They tend to be more concerned. They tend to be more attentive, so I'm really big on that, and giving them the opportunity to have that ownership. And that means shares and stakes in the company, And I just think that you develop a really a stronger employee, which is better for you and better for your company if you work with it that way.
That's like another whole show, Stevie.
Yeah, no.
Doing that. So I still get questions all the time, and I think 4 or 5 years ago it was a much bigger deal than it is today. But people are always so worried about this whole disclosure thing between being an agent and being an investor, and which hat you have on, and how do you go out there? I had this conversation just the other day with someone. They said they had put their investing business marketing in their husband's name because he was the actual rehabber. But, different states have kind of tougher laws on this. So how do you find that you have any conflict, or is it because of the way you've got it set up, it's really a non-issue?
Well, I mean, part of my real estate education was I spent 15 years on the education committee and on the standards and ethics committee here at our Austin Board of Realtors. And up until just a couple of years ago, we actually were one of the few boards, particularly here in the Southwest, that heard our own cases. And so we were very involved. We heard our own cases. We dealt out repercussions from those cases, and in many instances created courses to deal with the cases that we saw coming before us frequently. So I was very involved in that process, and it was a great education for me, both in showing me the things that I should do and in showing me the things I shouldn't do. Everybody that sat on that board, we all felt that way. We had all learned, wow, oops, that's something I won't be doing anymore, by listening to, our associates and comrades get into tight spaces because of that. So I took all that education very seriously, and the one thing that you learn is just disclose. It's kind of like location. Everything's disclosed. I mean, here in Texas, I just make it very clear, that I'm a principal in multiple companies, that I'm a broker, owner of Four Directions Realty, and that I also own a funding company, and I own an investment company and a building company. And that, if you're doing business with the real estate company, generally speaking, you're doing business with the real estate company, but I nonetheless disclose my association with all the other companies. And we work very closely with the agents, making sure that they disclose everything as well, and that all parties at all times know who they're working with and who that party represents. And we just are very, very particular about that disclosure and having it in writing and making sure everyone understands and signs off on that.
That's a great thing. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that never thought of doing what you're doing, of actually getting in there and serving on the boards and getting that firsthand education. There's really nothing better than that.
It creates a lot of clarity for you, and just makes you, our fiduciary responsibility is the very thing that creates the liability, right? Our fiduciary responsibility is to our clients. And, if we're out here doing, wearing the multiple hats and doing the things that we do, it's very easy to cross those lines. So if you're getting that education and you're getting that experience, and not just sitting in a class, but actually putting that into work as a member of a board, particularly in an education status or in a status that has to do with the standards and ethics part of it, it makes it very hard not to keep your nose clean. And it makes it a whole lot easier to get that clarification that you need to make it very easy to do the right thing all the time, even if nobody's watching, because chances are somebody's watching. And, that's another thing I always tell my agents and my partners and everything. It's just like, we're always going to do everything as if the entire world is watching, because as far as I'm concerned, they are. And so we just always go about it that way.
That's a great way to put it, as if the whole world is watching. Well, let's dive in and talk to what I'm so excited to talk about. That is container homes. When did you first become interested in container homes? Where did that come from?
Gosh, it's been nearly 30 years ago. you know, I got married and went to, you know, did a little tour of Cancun, Cozumel, that area. I'm a scuba diver, and so I went down there and was going to do some diving, you know, staying in these lovely 5-star hotels on the beach, and the terrific staffs at the hotel would, you know, service all day and all night, and then at the end of their shifts, go across the street to these little shanty towns that they lived in, you know, little shanty towns made out of cardboard boxes, you know, and little pieces of tin and whatnot that they could find along the way. And if they were lucky, they might maybe have come up upon a beaten up, you know, a shipping container that they had, you know, a couple of families living in perhaps. And I remember seeing it downpour one day and thinking, how do those people in those poor little cardboard boxes live? You know, I mean, what do you do with your stuff, you know? And then I, you know, throughout time, I was always a very involved kid with, you know, if there was a hurricane, I was out collecting clothing for people. If there was a tornado, I was out collecting, you know, I mean, I was just always involved with community efforts. And I noticed these containers popping up as, you know, relief housing and whatnot. And then when I got to go to Europe and see, you know, different places have been using them as, you know, residential housing and commercial buildings for a long time, I started studying them and looking at them, you know, more closely. It's about 12 or 15 years ago, studying the dynamics of the materials that they're made out of and just what they can do, and knew then that I was going to build with these at some point in time, if not for the world, for myself. But it was always in my head that, you know, gosh, you know, just looking here at home even, you know, you see people losing their homes due to, you know, tornadoes and hurricanes, even floods and earthquakes and fire. And this particular product can help with a lot of that, can relieve a lot of that. And I knew that at some point in time I would bring the social worker part of me and the real estate part of me together and create a product that could help us here in many ways, and maybe even help the rest of the world.
Well, I know we're going to talk a lot about the specifics of these container homes, but if you had to say, had to pick one use for them that you're seeing in your business, what would that number one use be? Would it be for housing, just regular housing, or what would it be?
Gosh, they're so versatile. You know, the housing is our main focus at this point, but they, you know, they make great pools and they make great commercial buildings. I mean, you can build apartment buildings, you know, retail spaces, you know, all kinds of things out of them. Make It Modular currently is focused mainly on residential, but we are looking at several commercial projects, and we're going to be putting a pool in my backyard here this spring, I believe. So, yeah. Well,
tell me and tell everybody that's going to listen to this, what's so special about the modular homes compared to stick homes? What are the advantages, maybe?
Well, we, you know, our tagline is affordable, durable, sustainable, and you know, when we say affordable, I don't mean cheap. I mean a good product for a fair and reasonable price. They can be built for, generally speaking, usually about 10 to 15% less than traditional sticks and bricks buildings, but it takes about half the time to build them as it does a traditional sticks and bricks building. So if you're talking about holding time and bridge loans and, you know, the expense of that, it definitely cuts down on that. And, you know, the durable, I mean, they're just about, I mean, they're solid. These things are wind and water tight and extraordinarily solid the way they come to us. They're built to withstand up to 175 mile an hour winds from like a tornado or a hurricane. They're very fire resistant. They're wind and water tight. They're wood destroying insect resistant. They don't care too much about Corten steel. They're mold and mildew resistant. You know, they're earthquake resistant. You know, they might rumble around on the foundation a little bit, or you know, even roll over, but they're not going to fall down. You know, so there's, you know, a lot of positives. They take gunfire well. I mean, you know, you're not, if you hit the windows, it's a window, but you know, if you fire a gun at the shell itself, it's going to bounce off of it. You know, so they're very energy efficient the way we build them, extraordinarily energy efficient. So that's a really great thing. We make them very green, low voc, no voc, everything. And they're very low maintenance. You can clad the exterior however you want, but if you leave them sort of the way they are and just do a nice paint job, maybe a feature wall with some other metal or some kind of cool wood surfacing, really it's a matter of spraying it down and, once or twice a year with a power washer. There's not much maintenance to it, inside or out, which is one of those things that's, it makes it kind of an attractive product even for, investors, because, you can build, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, apartments, even single family homes out of these, and they're going to be just much more resistant to the kind of traffic that you would get in something like that. So your maintenance costs are greatly reduced, as is, again, your building time and your expense for building and, your maintenance and upkeep. So a lot of things make it an attractive product.
So they're insulated much, are they insulated in a similar way to stick-built homes? How does that work?
Yeah, that's been one of the big factors. There are several things that have kind of kept this from catching on big in the States. And a lot of that has been, figuring out the construction process and the way to keep it within the codes. And a lot of the codes have to do with the space. And so like in Texas and Austin, for example, the smallest livable space has to be at least 7 feet across in every direction. And so, so you have an 8-foot wide container, you got to keep 7-foot space. So you got to be careful with those walls. And of course, we marry containers together and open that space up. We have rooms that are 40 feet wide. So they're not necessarily 7 feet, but if you're working with that in mind, insulation and wall thickness is a factor. And we actually use a spray-in closed cell insulation and outsolation, for that matter, inside and outside. So we use on the outside, it's a combination of open and closed cell spray-in foam insulation, and for again, to keep with our green theme, our sustainable theme, and low voc, no voc kind of situation, creating a green environment within the home, and to reduce the carbon footprint for where we're placing these units. We choose to go with a plant and water-based spray-in insulation.
Well, so it's funny. You said between the last time I talked to you about doing the show and this time, I was telling someone that I was going to be doing this.
Yeah. And
that was their question. So I said, well, I'll just ask her.
Yeah.
I don't really, I know she knows. So I guess my question that just came up is, so the regular building codes for stick-built homes generally apply for your modular homes?
Absolutely. And, we have to meet the same regulations. And in most cases, we actually exceed the regulation. And that's what we're kind of, there is an organization, like there is for many things. Container-based building has some organizations. One's commercial applications and one is for more residential applications. But they're actually currently writing some guideline books to be shared nationally, because we've all come up with some of these similar situations where, we're walking the city through the code process and walking the inspectors through the code process, and they're like, well, you exceed this and you exceed that and you exceed this. I'm not sure. I've never seen anything like this, and so it's an educational process for a lot of them as well.
Well, I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. They have to start somewhere, and then they have to learn about the product, because it's new to most people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know that you say that you can do tiny little things, like if you wanted, I know one of your things I saw was a party house or a little office or a mother-in-law suite, but I know you do big things too.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the design process of those. How does that work?
Yeah, well, the smaller ones are somewhat easy in that, there's the smallest thing we do is 160 square feet. And you kind of have to think of, shipping containers like little Lego blocks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us had Legos when we were kids, or we had kids or grandkids that have Legos. And so, and a lot of times we'll paint them that way, make them very colorful. So we work mostly with 20 footers and then 40 footers. And sometimes we'll work with, other sizes, but 20 and 40 footers are our mainstay. And the things they all have in common is they're all approximately 8 feet wide exterior, and then 20 and 40 feet long. You can get them in 8.5 high cubes or 9.5 high feet cubes. Those are called high cubes. We work with those to give you that extra headroom. And because most of us would rather have 9-foot high ceilings than 8-foot high ceilings. And, so we start at 160 square feet. That's our smallest unit that we do. And we go up to thousands of square feet. We have designs in our portfolio right now that are our designs up to about 3,300 square feet. But
wow.
We're working on a 6,000 square foot design venue for somebody. It's a commercial venue that we're working on for someone. So, there's really not a limit. We tell people the limit is really your imagination and your pocketbook, because that's pretty much it. And so the design process, the smaller units, there's only so much you can do with 160, 320, 480 square feet. There's a few different ways you can put them together, but we kind of find out what is there, we sit down with the client, what is the main thing you're going to be using it for? What is the design, what are the design features you have in mind? If you're using it for pottery studio, you're going to want a sink in it. If you're using it for a yoga studio, maybe not, So we find out what they're going to use it for and what they desire to have as, features in it. And then we do the design from there. And of course, taking into consideration, a big part of it is where are you going to place it, and what challenges might we have with that. And of course, working with whatever governing entities there are. Sometimes there's not any. It's out in the middle of the woods somewhere, and there's not any jurisdiction. Sometimes we're working with multiple entities. Sometimes there's an HOA that wants us to clad it to look like the house. And sometimes it's a simple or a not so simple city or county process of permitting. But we try to sit down and work with the basic designs that we've created, and then bring the client into the process, get their input and what their needs are, marry those things up, and fit them into the space that the project is going to go into, and take all those things into consideration at once.
And when we first started talking about this, I had all these questions just kind of racing around in my mind. And, I was thinking about plumbing and things like that. But you said all of these are built on a permanent foundation.
Yes.
So that kind of answered my question about that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of one thing, though, this morning. What about electrical?
Mm-hmm.
You're in a metal building. So how does that work?
Yeah, it is a metal building. There's certainly grounding. When we run the electrical, we're again working with, your typical certified construction crew. We have certified plumbers, licensed electricians, licensed HVAC people. So, and the big difference, we're constructing a home like any other home. The big difference being the skin, if you will, the cladding, and the structure. And so you have a super strong skin and cladding and structure, and then you go in and you're going to put your plumbing and electrical, and that's when we're working with the crews. That's the first thing they notice. It's like, well, once you've gotten the skin in place, the frame in place, and you've done your cutout and your welding and your frame up of your steel, and then you're going to run your electrical and plumbing just like you would a normal home, and then you attach it, and then when you start putting the drywall and everything up, it just goes together like a normal home would.
Okay.
And so it's the same thing. Yes, you have a steel box. But you're going to be grounding that electrical just like you would ground a normal home. So you're going to be driving that grounding coil and everything. So you're still grounded there. So yeah, a lot of people think, oh, I'm living in a big metal box. No, you're grounded, and there's plenty of grounding materials within the home, and it is a big metal box, but people have been living in big metal boxes long before this.
Long before this. And, you know, it's funny that I went to my RIA meeting Thursday night and ran into somebody that said, you know, what have you got coming up on your for interviews or your show? And I said, well, I've got this really cool interview. And I was telling them about the modular home. And that's the first thing they said, how does that work? Electricity, and you're in a metal building. And I said,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's like a normal home, but I'll be sure to clarify that.
Yeah, we run it in conduit just like you would. You know, we run it through the frame, and there's access to it if one needs to gain access to it. You know, the big things are, you know, I mean, spray foam insulation can be used in any home, but you see it. I mean, it is probably one of the preferred choices in this type of construction. And you know, then again, of course, your skin in your frame, and that's where that durable, sustainable comes in, and of course the affordable, because again, that cutting back on the time. But the rest of it does come together a whole lot like just a traditional home, and that's why it's not too hard to make the leap. The biggest part is, you know, understanding that Corten steel 16 gauge, I mean, it's an unforgiving material. So you have to measure 5 or 6 or 8 times and cut once. And there's, you know, grinding. So you're doing a lot of welding and grinding and working with steel, and it's a lot less forgiving than wood. And so that front end is where most of the learning curve is. Once you get that part down, the rest of it comes together much like traditional building.
Well, I mean, there's no denying that is a super durable home that you've got at the end of the day.
Yeah, very solid. People are amazed. This is several departments from the city of Austin have come through, and other builders that build and just are curious and want to see what we're doing. And you know, they come through, and that's the one that they'll stomp their feet on the ground and knock their hand against it and say, "Man, this thing is solid," you know. And they're like, "Yeah, you could probably get picked up in a hurricane and thrown around in this and be just fine," you know. And it's like,
well, I would think you said it can sustain what, 175 mile an hour winds.
Yeah, that's in the ISBU, the people that actually build those things, that's what they put out there. It's up to 175 mile an hour winds on hurricanes and tornadoes. But I mean, you have to think that, you know, these things are they're built to be placed on ships and stacked 13, 14, 15 high and sent out to sea with you know, thousands of pounds of materials in them, and, you know, shipped across oceans. And you know, so they're built to withstand that kind of activity. And, you know, the more crazy weather we have, for whatever the reasons, the more crazy weather we have, the less, the more incidences we have of people coming to harm and property coming to harm because of those weather incidences. And this is a good solution for a lot of that.
Well, I know too that much like a custom home, if you buy a home that I say is kind of, you go into a builder and you pick a plan. He has 10 plans and you pick a plan, then you pick your finishes. And it's no different from what you've told me in container homes. You have basic, just nice finishes on up to really luxury finishes. So let's talk about that just a bit. So what even constitutes a luxury finish?
Yeah, you know, it was interesting. As soon as we, you know, started getting ourselves out there and meeting and greeting people and hearing from our public, we found that, you know, we had such a broad range of people that wanted the product. You know, everything from the, you know, the millennials and whatnot in the 20s and up range, literally up into the late 70s, early 80s. People that were downsizing and just didn't want to have to deal with a lot of maintenance issues and wanted something strong, kind of like, you know, the big boat to surround themselves with as they drove down the road. And so we found that we had a lot of different calls across age ranges and across socioeconomic ranges too. We had the people that really, can you just get drywall up and let us finish it out? And, you know, they were trying to save money. They were on a fixed income, or they just were do-it-yourselfers and wanted to be able to do that. And, you know, for us as builders, that's not the ideal situation, because you know, we want to be able to warrant the product. And if we only get to build half of it, we really can't warrant the product that way. But then we had these people on the other end that were like, well, you know, we want granite and marble everywhere and stainless, and, you know, we want peaked roofs and, you know, cedar decking, and, you know, and it's like, yeah, we can do all of that, of course, you know. And so, you know, we got to looking at the broad range of people we have. And, you know, of course, the first thing everybody wants to know is, you know, what are the plans? You know, how many plans do you have? How many models can I choose from? And what are the prices? And we recognized right off that people had a variety of ideas. They wanted everything from the 160s up to the 3,000 square footers. And they wanted everything from just real simple and basic to full on what you would see in
full on luxury
$1 million homes. And they had the money. They wanted this product because of the durability aspect and the low maintenance aspect. And so it was an interesting thing to try to create a showroom breakdown, if you will, that would work for those people. But that's where the basic, enhanced, and luxury came in. And so the basic is very nice, and it's, you know, granite countertops and, you know, black appliances and entry-level engineered wood floors, and, you know, 1x2 tiles, and, you know, a certain price range. And, you know, then each section goes up a little bit, you know, enhanced, you know, higher level granite. It brings in the stainless appliances. Luxury brings in things like quartz countertops and, you know, marble options in the bathroom, and you know, peaked roofs and or green rooftops, things like that. You know, we offer, and when we, you know, broke it down to like that, it was the things like flooring, countertops, cabinets, appliances, those types of things, where you would think would normally be the differences in finish outs. And so we made those finish outs available, and made it where people could say, well, you know, I want a level 2 floor, but a level 4 granite. They could mix and match them up a little bit. So we've made that available to people. And then we have a whole list of green options. You know, yes, we do water barrels. Yes, we can do water cisterns. Yes, we can do green roofs, solar roofs. We have a relationship with Solar City, you know, so we, you know, we have all the kinds of green options that you would want. We do tankless water heaters. We, you know, do all kinds of things that you would expect to find in a product like this that's very energy efficient. And so where some of those things might be cost prohibitive on the basic end, they come in to the enhanced or the luxury end and fit in very well.
Well, gosh, if you're starting off with basic with granite, I don't think anybody would have too much to complain about.
Now, most people come into our basic model and go, "This is the basic finish out." Shoot,
yeah. I was going to say,
impressed by it. So
listening to you, the basic sounds pretty nice compared to basic, and even in most home markets. You're not going to get granite in too many basics unless you're at a much higher starting point, and it's the basic for that level of subdivision or something.
Right. Well, and that's one of the benefits of being a builder too, as opposed to just flipping or just rehabbing, you know, because unless you're flipping or rehabbing it on a larger scale where you're doing, you know, 20, 30 homes a year or something, you know, quite a few homes, you have to be, you know, at a certain level to be able to get the kind of discounts that you would get as a builder. So as a builder, we've been able to establish relationships, you know, as builder relationships, distributorships, things like that with some of these people, like the hardy plank people, the plywood people that we buy those products from. And so we're able to offer granite in the basic and have that be pretty reasonable for us, you know, as reasonable as doing laminate would be for a rehabber in a traditional home. So it makes it a win-win situation for us and the client.
So what is the most desired, or the most, what size is your most desirable unit?
Yeah, there's kind of two that have been coming across the range here lately. We seem to be getting a lot of demand for our larger one bedroom, which is the 480 square foot, and then the 640, which is our two bedroom model. So 480 square foot and 640 square foot, and a lot of both young professionals have been looking at the millennium professionals looking at that, and they like to kind of start small and they want to add on to it later, and that's kind of a cool move. And the other people that are looking at it are folks that are, I would say mid 40s to mid 60s. They've already gone through a couple of jobs, and they may be probably in their last career phase, and they're sort of some of them are coupled up, some of them are single. And they're just, downsizing, trying to simplify life a little bit. And that model works, those models work well for them. On the other complete side of that is we've had a pretty big demand lately for 3,000 square footers. And those are growing families. Most of them are looking for 3 and 4 bedrooms plus an office, or they're families that they've got 1 or 2 kids and they need 3 bedrooms plus a couple offices. They both work at home. Lots of people that work at home. Lots of people that work at home.
Yeah. So you mentioned that these are faster to build. How much faster?
They generally speaking, they take about a third to half the time.
Oh, wow.
These 480 square foot, 640 square foot ones, I'm trying to think right now, our timeline on our 480s is right about 6 weeks. So we can put basically a one bedroom apartment / house together for you in about 6 weeks. The 640 is right around 8 weeks, but an 800 square foot is also very popular, and that's 8-10 weeks. So there's a lot of 800 square foot houses on the east side of Austin, and probably in a lot of our areas where we that were built during the World War II time, and they were old World War II home, people coming home from the war, and those are the houses they had built for them. You'd be probably pretty hard pressed to get somebody to put one of those up for you in 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
We can knock these out in a couple of months. The larger ones, even the 3,000 square footers, we're scheduling 5 months for those, but 4 months is a pretty good finish out time. So 4 to 5 months. And you'd probably be pretty hard pressed to get that built in under a year in the traditional market. Yeah.
So on your basic, somebody's going to want to know price wise, what's an average per square foot price? If somebody wanted to call you up and say, I want one of these 800 something square foot, make it modular homes, and I'm just going to get the basic, what kind of money are we talking about?
Yeah, it's it's kind of funny, and people that build will understand this. When you're building smaller, sometimes it's a little more expensive to build smaller, especially if you got 160 to 480 square feet. You still got to get a bathroom and a kitchen in there. It's a small space. It's a certain dynamic. So we price our 160s to 640s just by those models, and like the 480 models, I think they start right about $74K. And then the 800 model, I think, runs right around 124. But once you get up past the 800 square feet, we start going per square foot. So when we get up to the 960 model or the 1070 model, 1280 square foot models, those start at 165 a square foot.
Okay, so that gives people an idea. If they, I can see all kinds of uses for these. Gosh, if you were in a college town and you're a mom looking to send 2 or 3 kids through college, or mom and dad, and you're going to have to, you look at dorm costs compared to one of these modular, pretty much indestructible units for the kids that are going to go through college. Boy, wouldn't that just be something at the end of the time you can keep it or sell it or whatever you wanted to do with it?
Yeah, that's going to hold up.
Yeah, going to hold up.
Yeah,
and it's an investment over dorm fees. Sometimes people hesitate to buy buildings. Some will, but some go, gosh, I just don't want the maintenance of that house and all that goes with them. You know, if I buy like a home while my children are in college and then they move out of it. So I could see a lot of advantages here for that.
Oh, sure. You know, and we, you know, there's always been a kiddie condo market, but with the prices of the condo association fees and those kind of things going up, and we've had a lot of hassles with the HOA associations getting into trouble in our area lately, and so people have been somewhat hesitant to continue on that path, and quite frankly, I mean, we've had such a lack of housing. I mean, we're in a situation here where we have a less than 1 month supply. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. So not only is that not such a viable option for people, but I mean, we don't have the inventory to supply it, even if they wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. This is a product that you can say, well, like, let's, you know, hey, Grandma Rosie has a big backyard, and we can drop one in her backyard and, you know, tap into her utilities, and kids can go to school and live there, you know, or we can buy a lot over here and drop mm-hmm. it, and we can sell it, you know, 10 years down the road after the kids have come and gone through school, and mm-hmm. it's going to pay itself off in a few years. I mean, price per square foot wise, you know, even if you have to purchase a lot to put it on, we're still coming in considerably under what price per square foot is in the area.
Wow. Yeah, very, very, very cool product, I'll tell you. And Stevie has sent me some great pictures, which I'm going to put in there. I think until I saw the pictures, it was hard for me to really imagine it as a, you know, the first time I heard about it. But they are really quite nice.
Yeah, a lot of times people will tell me, well, why would you want to live in a box? And I'm like, you should just come and see my boxes and then ask me that question.
Yeah, come and see
until you've been in them and kind of hung out and recognize, you know, the strength and the durability and the positive features of it, and seeing how beautiful we can make them. I mean, there's multi-million-dollar homes being made out of these. Until you actually see that and get your eyes on it and understand, it really is hard to kind of put it all together. But, you know, I always tell people, say, well, you know, I've shown pictures of the ones we have, and then the plans of we're getting ready to put an 1,800 square footer and an 1,100 square footer on ground. We're breaking ground here in the next week or so over on the east side. And everybody's excited, oh, when are you can we come and see it? You know, I'm like, of course, we're going to have a big grand opening. It'll be great. Mm-hmm. There'll be a big party, and there'll be a film. We're going to film that from beginning to end so everybody can kind of see the process of building a big one. And, you know, people get, you know, they really don't know. They don't understand. They don't get it. And I tell them, you know, if you just can't wait, just go to Pinterest and put in container house or container pool. You'd be amazed at the images that come up. They're very unique. They're beautiful. They're, you know, and the imagination truly is your limit. I mean, people have done incredible things with these, and Make It Modular is going to be doing lots of incredible things with them, and we hope all of you get a chance to see it.
Well, you let me know now when you do that, because and you send me a link to that video, because I'm going to go back and put it in the show, but I'm going to count on you to remember that.
Absolutely. I think you should just come down and do another show and show the process.
Let me tell you, I just might do that. I'll be calling.
Got room for you.
Hey, I'm coming down. But yeah, that is.
You can spend the night in a container home and do the show from there. It'd be really cool.
Oh, awesome.
There you go.
Awesome. So I'm going to put that on my list. Well, yeah. Stevie, this has been so much fun learning about these things. I think it's fascinating. It's not something that is for everybody, but nothing is for everybody. It's a very niche product, but it's a great product. And like you, I went on a trip one time, and I saw those folks living in cardboard shacks, and you talk about really putting a damper on your trip. You felt so bad because you were in these nice accommodations, and they were living, like you said, mostly with cardboard, some pieces of wood nailed up there or metal. And oh my gosh, it was so terrible. If even here in the U.S., if the government could figure out a way to solve some of the housing problems with these, wouldn't that just be a great solution?
Yeah. Well, we are hoping to help with that, and we've already talked to the city of Austin about participating in housing initiatives in the communities that we're building in. We're going to be building in all kinds of communities, but in the communities that we build in, we're looking to donate some of our mini mods to those communities for their housing initiatives. And there's also a great way to use these pods. You can take a 40-foot pod and outline it with LED lighting and pocketing on the sides, and grow 3 acres worth of food in one of these pods. Wow. And feed an entire neighborhood healthy food. And we're going to be participating in some of those things as a way to give back to the communities that really need these things as we build in these communities. So that's part of our initiative, is to help that process along by I call it leading by example. So we're going to show them that these things can be done, and this is how we do it, by simply doing it and donating that, so that they can catch on and maybe hire us and some of our people to do it. And we'd love to hire some of the people in the community to become informed and learn how to do it too. So we're looking forward to that.
Well, that's awesome, and yeah, you let me know when you got your thing filmed, and I'm going to be hitting down there in Austin. So, last question here. This has been a great show, but I always like to talk about. You and I are both big on education, and we're readers. I like to talk about books that made a difference, or your favorite books, or something you have to recommend to the folks that will see the show.
Yeah, there's so many. As my partner is an activist and former librarian and college professor, so there's so many books in this house. I mean, both of our bedside tables are stacked high. But the two I've been reading most recently, one partly because it was part of my wedding vows, actually, and I was revisiting those recently. But The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. I think there's a lot of people going through a lot of hard times right now, trying to figure out what's going on, just try to find their way and, find a higher road, if you will. And that particular book is very helpful in helping you find a higher level of self-understanding, I think. And so The Road Less Traveled, Scott Peck. And then, not just with what I'm doing now, but just almost in my daily life, with all the companies, everything. People are always asking me, don't you ever get afraid? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm afraid every day. And they, well, how do you deal with that? And it's like, well, you just move through it. You don't, I always tell people, I never let the fear of what is get in the way of, I never let the fear of what if get in the way of what is. And one of those books that reminds me of that all the time, I guess, is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Susan Jeffers.
I love that book.
Yeah. And I just think it really helps you with, your misconceptions about fear and your attitudes, shifting that to attitudes of strength and conviction. And settling out that whole thing of, never letting what if get in the way of what is. And those are the two, I think, that come to mind at this point.
Yeah, I love both those books. And, it's been a long time since I've read The Road Less Traveled. I probably need to pull that out again. I've got certain books that I reread, most always, rather than novels, business type of books. It's kind of weird, I guess, but once I've read a novel, I've kind of read it. But
yeah.
So I'm going to put all Stevie's contact information here on the blog with Stevie, just for somebody that might happen to just listen to this. What's the best way for them to reach you if they have questions?
Yeah, Stevie at makeitmodular.com, or they're always welcome to give me a call, or you can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty active social media wise. So, any of those ways to get a hold of me. Happy to talk to anybody anytime.
Well, thanks again, Stevie. It's been fun, and I'm going to take you up on your offer there. So looking forward to that. And I want to thank everybody that comes over to the blog, that watches the videos, that leaves comments. And there are some people that just download the podcast. That's fine too. We appreciate everybody that comes to hang out with us. So I think that's it for today. So this is Sharon Vornholt, and I'll be back soon with another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing.